What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to the Golden Epic PV, The First Dawn of Destiny. I was sort of expecting something to come out around now, but I was more so expecting for it to specifically be a Myriad Celestia trailer for Tribbie, if anything, so this is a bit of a surprise. I'm curious to see what this is. I won't delay things any further. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and let's get into this.
This is a story from the distant past.
Is that old?
The era back then was
Tribbie?
named after gold. And gods still walked with mortals.
Interesting, like water
Their
fingers.
tears and sweat fell.
Okay, so this is the times before the apocalypse.
But times changed,
Yeah.
and calamity fell. Yanisopoulos prayed to the Holy Maiden for a prophecy. Please tell us how to return to those beautiful days of the past.
Interesting.
But Tribbios knew that the three gods were no longer able to respond.
Interesting.
If the Titan who bears the world has already fallen in the flames of war, then who will lift the torch and drive away the long, cold night?
The demigods.
If the Titan who guides the people has withered in the deepest dark, then who will take their authority and fulfill the promise of passage?
I can think of someone.
Humans will. I will.
I love this, honestly.
I will step through the first crossroads and sail toward tomorrow.
And then she split herself.
I've gotten smaller, and there's more of me. Get ready. It's time for us to head out with the west wind.
This is really cool to see, honestly.
Toward the proverb revealed by fate. Go and seek the children of humanity with golden blood.
Alright, we see all
Like
of them.
you, some will be trapped in the past.
Okay, trapped in the past for Cascarus.
Some will bury time itself.
Bury time itself.
Some will discard their humanity. Some will
Interesting.
forfeit their life. Some will become utterly alone.
God damn it, they're gonna give him depression again.
Some will lose everything.
Interesting.
Tribbios, the first demigod, set out toward tomorrow until your calls break through the darkest gloom.
Interesting. Okay, that's really cool to see. This effectively is the Myriad Celestia trailer for Tribbie. It just so happens that Tribbie is very important to the lore overall, so it essentially is affecting the entire lore overall as well. It is really cool to see pre-demigod Tribbios. I guess I had forgotten about the fact that in the story, it was acknowledged that before becoming a demigod, she wasn't a child. So not only is her splitting into three a complicated, more spiritual mental thing, but it also literally physically diminished her. Something that I really appreciate from this is not only are we seeing pre-demigod Tribbios, but we are also seeing a glimpse of what Amphoreus was like before the whole apocalypse and encroaching darkness began, before the Titans went silent. We get this glance at the world before that was not perfect necessarily, but much more vibrant. But then we have this transition. We see a god being burned. Yanisopoulos prayed to the Holy Maiden for a prophecy. Please tell us how to return to those beautiful days of the past. Everyone is just desperately seeking a way back to this prosperous era, but there is no answer from the gods, and therefore Tribbios has no answer for the people. The gods have fallen silent as the world falls to ruin. And it's here where Tribbios begins to question the Titans, whether or not they truly will be able to save them having gone silent. She questions Kephales's capability to wield the light. Who will hold the light in his place? And what of Yanis? Who will guide the people in the place of Yanis? Who will take the authority of passage from them? There's a rather simple answer. Humans will. I will. Naturally, by being the first demigod, Tribbios is an immensely important figure. If I understand the lore correctly, and the timeline of it correctly, Tribbios chose to take up the core flame of Yanis and become the first demigod before the prophecy was known. Before the quest of the Chrysos heirs had even begun, she was faced with these questions, and she found the answer in herself. Literally. She was the answer. If our gods will not give us the answers, if the gods have gone silent, if the gods have abandoned us to die, or are too occupied with their duties to do anything more, then the only people who can save us are ourselves. And if it is necessary, I will take that first step so that others may follow behind me. That is the decision Tribbios makes here. And as she steps off of the precipice, as she steps through the first crossroads, and sails towards tomorrow, as she says, she, willingly or otherwise, it's a bit unclear if the splitting was intentional or more of a part of her ascension based on her confused reaction at her own identity in a moment here. She chose to step off the precipice and spread this message of humanity being the ones to save themselves. She will create tomorrow, a world where humanity can live. She will be the first to step towards that. And when she wakes up once more, she realizes she's gotten smaller and that there's more of her. But that does not stop her from continuing on her mission towards her goal. It's time for us to head out to the West Wind. They must journey out across the skies to spread the prophecy and gather the Chrysos heirs. And interestingly enough here, though we have the three here talking, there are countless others surrounding them, which is very interesting to me because it was sort of implied that there potentially were more of her at one point, if I recall things correctly. But I don't think I had considered that it could have been just as many as we have shown here, which implies that this has been a long and arduous road for Tribbios and all of her aspects. Countless of them have died and been burned away in their goal until only 3 remain. Toward the proverb revealed by fate, go and seek the children of humanity with golden blood. And it's here that we begin to see all of the different Chrysos heirs, or Chrysos heirs to be in this case. As Tribbios in all her aspects soars across the sky to bring the message of the prophecy, we see all of the various heroes. We see Castorus. Like you, some will be trapped in the past, which the phrasing here, like you, is interesting to me because we have to ask who you is in this scenario, because that could be Tribbios talking to Castorus, saying, you are not the only one trapped in the past. Others will be too. Alternatively, it could be someone talking about Tribbios and implying that Castorus is among them, or similarly, it could be Tribbios talking to someone other than Castorus, but with the visuals of Castorus here implying that Castorus is one of those such people. Either way, the implication, I believe, is that Castorus is someone trapped in the past, which aligns with her character well enough, I'd say. We don't necessarily know much about her herself, but the one thing we do confidently know is that she's searching for her other half, whatever that may be, something that she lost in the past at some point. Next is honestly one of the most interesting ones to me, as the line matching this hero is some will bury time itself. And I don't recognize this hero. I think this might be one of the ones that was in silhouette in the original reveal of all the Chrysos heirs. And I'm intrigued by their design and the fact that they are connected to the line, some will bury time itself. It makes me think that they will have a major part to play in the future of the story at some point, probably closer to the climax than the beginning, hence why we haven't met them yet. But I'm not entirely sure what burying time itself looks like in this scenario. It could be metaphorical, but given that we're already playing with time in Amphoreus, I have a feeling it might be a bit more complicated than that. It might have a literal meaning, whatever that means. I'm not entirely sure, but it's something that I think is worth keeping in the back of our minds when we meet this person and leading up to that. But next up, we have the line, some will discard their humanity, and we have 3 of the heirs here. We have Aglaia and 2 others that we have yet to meet. I'm forgetting the cat girl's name. I know we've heard it before. I'm blanking on it though. Was it Cypher or something along those lines? I think it was something like that. but then I do not recall if we know this Chrysos heir's name. I just recognize the design vaguely. But I find it interesting that this is the line that is paired to all three of these, as based on how they've presented Aglaia so far, discarding their humanity makes sense for her. She is the leader of Akama, who has set aside a lot of potentially her own humanity and morality for the sake of ensuring the survival of the people of Akama and the people of Amphoreus. Or at the very least, it's implied that that is the case, that she is willing to potentially go to any means necessary to not die out as a people. But these other two we know very little about, so it's interesting to see them grouped in with Aglaia in this case. Next, we have Some Will Forfeit Their Life, and this is with, I believe that's Anaxa, and I'm forgetting her name. I know we know her name. It's like Hylacy or something like that. I'm terrible with names, but we haven't met either of them yet. Anaxa's about to show up in the story, but the line, "Some will forfeit their life," is not a hopeful one. It implies a death of sorts coming for them in the future. We'll see if that is actually true. We'll see if they actually go through with that. Given the track record of Star Rail with deaths and fake out deaths, I'm not going to, off of one line, say they guaranteed are going to die, but I am confident enough in the storytelling of Star Rail and Hoyoverse in general to give them the benefit of the doubt that these two are potentially on the chopping block going forward. They might die or sacrifice themselves in some way. And then the one for Phynon is also particularly interesting to me because he is alone here, rather fitting for the line. He does not share this fate with anyone. Some will become utterly alone. Sounds rather similar to a certain someone that he is reminiscent to, a certain someone by the name of Kevin, who might have lost everything in the name of saving the world. Perhaps we are seeing the slow downfall of Phynon towards a similar fate. Or perhaps, in a more positive sense of this, maybe this is talking about Phynon's past, and we've already effectively moved past that to a degree. I find that a bit unlikely because it's more juicy as a story if Phynon has a darkest moment where he feels utterly alone and he in some way is hardened by it or changed by it. And I also find this one interesting. I find all of them interesting, but for different reasons. But this one is interesting as, I believe this is Maide, but as a child, when he's cast into the River of Souls. Some will lose everything. He was cast out by his own father in an attempt to kill him, to leave him for dead. And yet he reached up for the light, emerged with an immortal body, and seized the light of Tribbios, the first demigod. And I find it interesting the wording of this and the framing of this last line. It's almost as if Tribbios is speaking to her future self, to all of her aspects. In that sense, if we're to assume that back into the previous lines, then this line, which I was questioning who was being addressed here, would be Tribbios to herself, in a way. Of course, it still is implying Castris is someone trapped in the past, but it's intriguing to think that Tribbios considers herself trapped in the past in some way. I'll be curious to see how that manifests in her character, if at all. But to return back to this line, this is a plea of sorts, a call to action to herself, to the myriad aspects of herself that she split into. Tribbios is asking of herself, set out toward tomorrow, until your calls break through the darkest gloom. Tribbios chose, when she became a demigod, to step forward into tomorrow, to make that path towards the survival of humanity. And now, having split apart, her final wish is that all of her myriad aspects will fulfill that goal of hers and step into tomorrow as she did, and continue marching forward, spreading the word of the prophecy and the continued stubborn survival of humanity until they break through the darkest gloom, until this darkness, this abyss is defeated. Continue marching forward, Tribbios. Do not stop. As the first demigod, an inheritor of the authority of passage, it is your duty, Tribbios, to be the one who marches ahead, who forges the path for everyone else. And that's just really hype. I really like this. It is mainly so a look at the origin of Tribbios becoming a demigod, but it also has some pieces of what Amphoreus looked like before the darkness and all of the titans went into silence or madness, as well as giving us potential hints towards the character and potential future storylines of the other heirs. We don't see every heir here. There's a few that are missing, but the ones we get all have interesting details to them. And this just makes me further excited to continue through Amphoreus. I know that not everyone shares my same love for it, but regardless of of how long the first bit was, and who knows how long this next bit will be, I loved just about all of it. It's still very much in the setup phase. If what was said before the release is true, that there are going to be 8 parts to this story, that we are going to be continuing the Amphoreus storyline for pretty much the entirety of the 3.0 version, then we are still in the early phases. If this is supposed to be following the hero's journey in a vague 3-act structure like they've sort of implied, then we are still firmly in Act 1. So to those who aren't necessarily enjoying it as much yet, all I have to say is give it time. This is going to be the longest storyline in Star Rail, let alone Genshin Impact or Zenless Zone Zero so far. Give it time to show us what it truly is doing, what it truly is like, what it is trying to achieve with its narrative. To those who are more like me, who are already enjoying it and excited to see what the future holds, I hope you'll all join me in experiencing it all very soon, once 3.1 comes out. I'm going to be streaming it on Tuesday when it releases at 7 p.m. PST. I'm beginning to stream more consistently now. I made a whole update video recently. One of the things I mentioned in there is I'm going to be streaming on an actual consistent weekly schedule now. Check that out if you want more info on that. And actually, as I'm moving towards the end of this video, another thing I will mention in relation to that sort of update I did, I am moving towards expanding my channel a little bit, and one of those things that I'm wanting to do is beginning to do some anime reactions. I made a post about it in my community tab earlier today. Feel free to, if you want to see any anime reactions from me, go over there, leave a comment on the post telling me what you want to see. But that is beyond the scope of this video, so I will leave that there. Look at the update video and the post in the community tab if you care about that. Otherwise, to everyone else, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment on your thoughts, and I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.